Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Geneva. I like to say that we are part of a living tradition. And that means a variety of things, but one of the things it means is that we're bound by a common history, an affirmation of the great spiritual quest for truth and meaning, and also by our promises, the promises we make to each other about the spiritual values that we seek to uphold. This means for us, we have no creed, no tests of faith, and that does put us a bit at odds with some of our fellow faith travelers. But it does mean that your doubts and your questions are welcome. We invite you, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, to be part of this congregation in which we draw wisdom from all of the world's religions and seek to balance that with the insights of modern science. Our goal is to build a diverse, beloved community, and it is our hope to accompany one another, to inspire each other, to challenge each other, to act for hope, peace, love, and justice in our own lives and in our larger world. Once upon a time, Enrico Fermi asked a simple question. Around the lunch table were a bunch of his friends, physicists, all talking about flying saucers. This was 1950, and in all fairness, the national news was full of the recent national craze, UFO sightings. And also in the news of the day, missing Central Park trash cans. UFOs, trash cans, because what else do you do in New York but talk about this stuff? Really, come on, let's be real. One of the group had even brought the newspaper to show off that day's cartoon. Aliens disembarking from their UFOs, each cheerfully carrying away a single New York City trash can. The jokes don't get better over time. It's okay. I think it's fun. But when Fermi asked his question, all three of his table mates realized it wasn't a joke. I'm sure they thought about trash cans, and I'm sure they thought about flying saucers, and I'm very sure they started doing the math. And after a second or two of high-speed mental calculations, all four of them just stared at each other. Because Fermi was right. It didn't make any sense. Let me try and reconstruct the argument. For a long time now, astrophysicists have said there is no reason to assume that the Earth is anything but an unremarkable planet in an unremarkable solar system in an out-of-the-way arm of a typical galaxy. Assuming that life on Earth was possible, it stands to reason that with 500 billion stars in the galaxy, life not on Earth was also possible. More, given the 13 plus billion years, right? 13 plus billion years that the galaxy has been around, there's really no reason to assume that life not on Earth had already happened. Even assuming that not all life leads to intelligent life, it's still reasonable to assume that some of that intelligent life out there, wherever, some of it might have been able to explore, or perhaps expand into neighboring star systems. Doing the math in his head, Fermi realized that even if space travel took hundreds or even thousands of years to go from star to star, any one species capable of exploring could in fact have explored the entire galaxy over the course of a few million years. In short, alien life should have been here by now, perhaps many times over. That is, math and logic tell us that the observable universe really ought to be just littered with flying saucers and stolen trash cans. But when we look around, no Vulcans, no Ferengi, no Jedi or Mandalorian, no xenomorphs, no alien predators, no Marvin the Martian, no Superman, no Mork from Ork, no Alf, no E.T. the extraterrestrial, no Klaatu Barada Nikto. Just one great silence. And that's weird. It's weird enough to be called a paradox. And that is what Fermi meant when he asked that day over lunch, 72 years ago, where is everybody? This is a good time to do our thing. So I'm going to ask the tech team to invite our remote guests back into the sanctuary. Feel free to go ahead and reactivate those cameras. We're totally looking right at you. Now, in the spirit of our friend, the Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III of Trinity Church here in Chicago, I want everyone here to turn to a neighbor. Someone next to you, someone across the aisle, someone on screen. Doesn't matter, pick somebody. I am totally looking right at you. Turn to somebody, there we go, and say to that somebody, neighbor. Oh, neighbor.
Neighbor.
Because we can.
Because we can.
Because we can. Yes.
Because we can.
Thank you so much. Audience participation, people, it's what it's about. Now, my jumping off point today was a book. It's a 2015 edition of Stephen Webb's If the Universe is Teeming with Aliens, Where is Everybody? Unlike most popular science books that I tend to glom onto, this one is a bit dense. It's lots of math and theory. It's a serious book. The book's subtitle is 75 Solutions to the Fermi Paradox and the Problem of Extraterrestrial Life. And that's up from the 50 solutions in the first edition. Yeah, this is the kind of thing that your minister reads for fun. For whatever it's worth, I alternate it with Calvin and Hobbes. The Fermi paradox is obviously an open question. It's still a going concern, still things that people try to answer. It's a challenge. And in an attempt to respond to that challenge, Stephen Webb has collected and discussed possible answers from all over, including scientists like Carl Sagan and science fiction authors like David Brin. The answers themselves explore distance, time, the challenges of starting life in the first place, to that life then evolving intelligence, to meteor collisions, to cosmic rays, to resource constraints, to social collapse, to climate change, to war. In short, any number of things can stand in the way of any particular would-be member of the United Federation of Planets. Some solutions suggest that environmental circumstances here on Earth are unique. Some suggest that intelligent life out there has been hunted to extinction, and that the hunters remain lying in wait for any who dare to raise a radio beacon into the night sky. There you go. Some say that the aliens are, in fact, here already. They are octopi, because everybody knows those are aliens. They're the Illuminati. They built the pyramids. They were, in fact, the first human beings who were descended from. Or maybe they're here, but they're in hiding. They're just totally in cahoots with local politicians. Lots of theories. But sadly, no Chewbacca, no Mos Eisley, no dens of scum and villainy, no smuggling anything to Alderaan, and personally, I am disappointed. I'm still intrigued, right? It's paradox. Now, it turns out that if we are ever going to seriously attempt to answer that "where is everybody" question, we're going to have to go out into the universe and look. And while I, for one, am totally here for that, I acknowledge that the possibility of getting far enough out there to even start to look for answers is going to be a monumental human undertaking. It's going to take math, science, time, an ungodly amount of money, and the cooperation of an enormous number of people. And that's assuming we can get past the many great barriers that are in front of us, barriers that are serious, complicated, and daunting. We're already facing climate change. We seem unable to avoid war. We have hunger and fake news and famously short attention spans. And news and corporations and politicians are all in cahoots, just not with aliens, which would totally explain things. But instead with the foolish, the greedy, and the incorrigibly stupid, and that is also incredibly disappointing. And yet we still dream. We walk outside, and on at least some evenings, we look up. We see the stars spilled like jewels across the velvety blackness, twinkling mystery back at us, and we wonder, and we have always done so. This week, we're going to celebrate the catastrophe of Apollo 13. Anybody see that movie? It's good, Tom Hanks movie, it's good. Anyway, the story, for the rest of you, the story goes that the astronauts were on their way back to the moon. This was a year after Apollo 11, which had carried Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, and Buzz Aldrin to that first lunar landing. And Apollo 12, anybody ever remember Apollo 12? That also made it to the moon, but it had another interesting thing happen to it. Did you know that Apollo 12, who here knew, Apollo 12 was struck by lightning? It was struck by lightning twice right after liftoff. Still made it to the moon. Now, Apollo 13 was less lucky. 2 days into the mission, the life support systems catastrophically failed. Running out of air, the team had to abort their mission and return. And the fact that they made it home alive, and yeah, I'm totally spoiling the movie, sorry. It's been 25 years, come on, right? The fact that they made it home alive, it was a triumph of human cleverness. And I totally recommend you checking that movie out, even now you know the ending. The sad part of it is, of course, that none of those astronauts ever got another chance to go back. Lightning, system failures, fire, explosions, all told, some 30 people over the years have died while either training for or attempting to complete human spaceflight. SpaceX in 2020, Columbia in 2003, Challenger in 1986, Soyuz in 1971, Apollo 1 in 1967. All of these are disasters, and they ended in a tragic loss of human life. And nevertheless, we persist. But why? Why do it? Knowing what we do know now, knowing the costs and the dangers, what on earth are we even doing out there? It's a question I returned to in a recent movie. Anybody seen Summer of Soul? You ever heard of this movie? Given all the drama at this year's Oscars, it's totally forgivable if you missed it, but it won Best Documentary. This movie explores a nearly forgotten music festival that was held in 1969, held coincidentally at the same time as the Apollo 11 mission. And some of the folks in that movie, you can see they were interviewed, they do mention space travel, space exploration, the space race. They mention it explicitly as something they were aware of. But all of those mentions were negative. In fact, I personally was struck by the fact that what I was hearing in this movie echoed exactly the criticisms leveled against Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, and Elon Musk last year when the trio launched all their rockets and whatnot up into space. People were outraged, both in 1969 and in 2021, that anyone would go into space instead of, say, ending world hunger. Taking that critique more broadly to an idea held by a great many for a great while now, that space exploration is not only dangerous, it is a hedonistic waste of resources that could and should be spent on the needy, the marginalized, the many and varied crises facing humanity then and now and in the future. Spending up there instead of down here is irrational, immoral, and indefensible. It's compelling. The argument is compelling. It's so compelling, in fact, that it successfully starved our space program for 50 years. And to be fair, we have quite a few challenges in front of us, not just hunger, but war, climate change, oppression, racism, disease. We have a lot to deal with. But to say that we must fix them all, that we must become perfect before we do anything else, is puritanical nonsense. It's also deceptive politics, because even a quick glance at the federal budget shows that we can totally walk and chew gum at the same time. However, it may mean a few fewer handouts for rich people. And now we understand. But I think we can all get over that, right? The fact is, we live a better life today because of the last 60-some years of our investment in space exploration. Yeah, there have been some spectacular failures, absolutely, and no question. But there have also been some spectacular successes. And some of those successes have led to revolutions here at home. Anybody here have a CAT scan ever? Anybody here know someone with an artificial limb or an insulin pump? None of that would have been possible without the space race. Modern firefighting, LASIK, solar power, baby formula, air purifiers, workout machines, LEDs, portable computers. All of that and a vast bit more, all are here because someone went there. Our modern life, especially here in the modern West, would be inconceivable without our space race. In fact, all of the complaints we get to enjoy about the space race are delivered to us via technology developed by the space race. That's irony. So we could argue, and maybe we should, that going to space is economically good for us. Smart people make cool widgets when we ask them to do hard things. Everyone likes cool widgets. Innovation is the grease on the wheel of human progress. Go space! But I want to say that cool tech is not why we do it, or why we should. Market economics just does not explain why we look up at the night sky and ask ourselves questions about who we are. where we came from, where we might yet go. It can't ask, much less answer, questions like Fermi's. The market doesn't wonder if we truly are alone in the universe. And economics will have a hard time explaining why we write stories or make movies or write poetry or songs about the oceans above and what wonders might lie beyond our tiny, comfortable, quaint little shores. Why it is that we seem called to explore. I like to think that there is a reason, though. A reason that speaks generally to our broader human nature, but especially to that part of us that is stubborn and obtuse and pathologically unable to leave mysteries alone. I like to think there is an answer for much of what we do, honestly. It may be a little perverse, but I believe it's also what's behind President Kennedy's suggestion way back in 1962 that we do things not because they are easy, but exactly because they are hard. In fact, it's a simple kind of explanation, really. We make art because we can. We help because we can. We make meaning because we can. And we send in our pledge cards to support our church. I'm not sure how that got in there. Anyway, yes, we do these things, and we will go to the stars because we can. We do things, big things, hard things, and we do them because we want to inspire ourselves, inspire each other. And that is, I believe, what the Fermi paradox is, or perhaps should be. Dark matter, dark energy, black holes, life on other planets. These are mysteries we are meant to explore, and maybe, if we're lucky, understand, if we're smart, if we're bold. Mysteries laid out in front of us like invitations to inspiration. Invitations and yet another chance to remind ourselves that whatever else we are, and despite all evidence and news to the contrary, we are also capable of doing big things, of having big ideas, having grand goals, living with indomitable hope. And when we dream of endless horizons. And that brings me, finally, to the James Webb Space Telescope. Anybody following this? It's amazing what they're doing with this thing. It's coming online completely in the next couple of weeks, and as it does, some of those most distant horizons will snap into focus for the first time. Oh, the things that we will see, the dreams we will have, the mysteries we will unravel. Maybe it is the case that we will learn we are not alone. Or maybe we will learn that the only aliens we will ever encounter out there are each other. I don't know. But there is one thing I know we will find out there. And that is our future. Why? Because we can. Amen. As we prepare to leave this place, continue your journey in love. Care for one another in this our earth, and do justice and make peace. And as you go, know that whatever taste or touch you've had in this time, in place of hope, joy, love, peace, mystery, wonder, that goes with you out into the world. We are different for having spent this time together. So remember, help Tracy. Go in peace.